Welcome back, everybody. Um, as Diego is just slowly dying over there, I'm Josh, your
Somewhat.
host. Diego's my other co-host. We are talking basketball today. Always fun topic. Not fun playing basketball in the wind today. A lot of missed shots, and I look like a really bad shooter because everything for me is about touch. And with a wind, I airball pretty much like 5 times. I went against a guy who's like one of my friends. He's like bigger size, bigger body. It's almost
Uh,
he's only got good at defense now, so it's possible to get by him without getting blocked. So I need to work on that part of my game. But Diego, what's this you? How have you been hooping, catching up with the NBA season?
Pretty good. We won our league game yesterday, so that was fun. Um, yeah, nothing too crazy. Just excited. We're about what? Today's the 8th. We're exactly 2 weeks away from NBA basketball starting. Preseason has
That's wild.
started.
That is wild to me.
It's getting fun. It's getting exciting. It's been a quick 4 months. 4 months? Yeah, very quick. So excited to see what we got coming up soon.
That first matchup, 7:30. I mean, very first game of the season is telling because our first
Yeah.
topic of the day is the cat trade. We haven't addressed that yet. Major question I want to get answered here. Does the cat trade put the Knicks on par with the Celtics?
I'd say no, just because the Celtics, well, it depends on with a healthy Porzingis, no, but I think without a healthy Porzingis, maybe, especially in the regular season, just because the Celtics are already kind of locked in. They've had this core, the Jays, like Al Horford. Is that really it? I mean, Derek White's been there a few years. This is Drew's second year. Like they're a team that has that chemistry. They won a championship. While the Knicks have just gotten that big guy in Cat. They just got Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, all within the span of a year. This has all happened in 1 year, so they're still very fresh. But I mean, the Celtics were a team that in the 2022 season really had a turnaround like that. I think when they got Derek White, so it's very interesting. But I think the Celtics are still better even after this.
Yeah, I hear you. It'd be interesting on who's even gonna be in the next starting lineup
Yeah.
because like you didn't see Josh Hart starting on this team at the beginning of the season, and all of a sudden he's like a major focal point. So I'm curious
Mm-hmm.
to see their five right now. If it were me, it's probably you roll with Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Ananobi, Hart, and maybe Cat
Okay.
if
Yeah.
he's all the way back. But it's like, how much do you lose without the guy who went to the Thunder? What's his name?
Isaiah Hartenstein.
Like Hardenstein,
Yeah.
as far as like the rebounding force, because Mitchell Robinson gives you that, and he gives you some defensive moments, but not much more than that as far as like offensive game. And then you have Cat.
hmm
He's not really known as a rebounder. He's kind of just like an offensive threat.
hmm
Um, how is he gonna pair on defense and space against a guy like Porzingis? I hear you when I say this, but I look at the talent on this team with the Knicks, what their potential is, and I look at their defensive lineups they can trot out there. If they can get into a defensive slugfest with the Celtics, I pick the Knicks because they have
Yeah.
one guy that can just, if it comes down to one possession, get a bucket, no matter how difficult it is. I trust Jalen Brunson more than I trust like a Tatum or a Brown. Like if the margins are close, like that's where the that's where the Knicks can catch the Celtics. So they have to play a specific brand of basketball, and their margin is small because, like you mentioned, the Celtics have been there and done
hmm
that. So, as much as I like Drew, maybe Drew stands a chance against Brunson, but like I don't like Derek White on Brunson. That's a really dangerous matchup for me.
Yeah.
Um, it's you've had Jalen Brown as your top five player this year.
hmm
If he's able to lock up Jalen Brunson, all bets are off. Like there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
But the only path I see the Knicks matching up with the Celtics if they play exactly how they had last year on the defensive end, and
hmm
then have that offensive diversification that you have with Cat with um with Brunson, like. And then the other thing to think about too is you have to play that style because you lost a major 3-point shooter with DiVincenzo. How are you gonna
Yeah.
make that up? Like I like McBride, but he can only get on a heater in a couple moments, and I don't see him starting over Josh Hart given all the value Josh Hart has on the other sides. And you haven't
Mhm.
been getting consistent Josh Hart threes a while. You had them in moments where he's hitting like 3 or 4 threes a game, and you're like, where does this come from? But the shooting is going to be like the outside shooting is going to be really, really key with this team. Because once the
Yeah.
Celtics start hitting like 10 or 15 threes, you don't stand a chance. Not with that line be trot out there.
No, I understand, and I definitely think it's really on Mikal and OG and Josh Hart. But I mean, Josh Hart a bit less since he might be the worst shooter of that group. It's Mikal and OG who need to make those threes and really like get that separation, get that space for Brunson. Um, so it'll be interesting. Like you were saying, I don't know. Drew is getting older. He's still like one of the better defensive guards in the league. And I think he can do his thing. Derek White might be a bit skinny. I don't know. He is taller, but yeah, I think you have to put Jalen Brunson or Jalen Brown on Jalen Brunson to get that optimal quote unquote matchup. Your possibly best defender, but also a big guy who can kind of body Brunson around maybe.
Yeah. The reason why I said Drew is because you do have McHale and OG. So from like a
Hmm.
size wise, I don't like the matchups on the Celtics end if they
Yeah.
go put Jalen Brown and Brunson. Um,
Hmm.
I like everything else as far as I'm on it, but like if you keep Brown and Tatum at the wings, that gives you that gives you some advantages. Only issue I see is if you see like a Brunson and Hart pick and roll with White, and they're
Hmm.
trying to seek out White.
Yeah.
That can be an issue for the Celtics because as
Yeah.
much I like White, like Brunson's like a different style of player. Like White will close out great on like dynamic shooters, but like Brunson's not just a dynamic like shooter. He's a very
Uh,
like patient scorer, like 3 level scorer.
Crafty.
Yeah, and he will back you down and isolate you like with his back to the basket. And
Hmm.
once he gets his back to the basket, it's game over. Once he gets to the middle of the paint, it's game over. So it
Yeah.
kind of doesn't matter how the White plays per se because his play style is just different. With
No, I
with a
can
guy
understand
like
that.
with a guy like Brown and Holiday, I trust more because I think they can be more of a deterrent from getting Brunson away from the paint. Um,
Hmm.
and if the Celtics decide to double Brunson and just leave Hard open, I like I like the Celtics chances. So they can completely just like not look at this as a one-on-one matchup, but they rarely double. So that's I don't expect that to see that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think a big thing of losing DiVincenzo is, especially with this trade, obviously, we're talking a lot more about him. They were saying that my man chucked up 12 threes a game, shooting like 30 something percent, over like 33%. So my man's making at least 4 threes a game, which is insane. Like that, those are kind of, they were comparing it to Klay Thompson, being like, this man turned into Klay Thompson for the second half of the year. And that is like insane to say. So very interesting. I think he'll have a good spot there in Minnesota as well. They kind of need the guard depth. We kind of talked about it when the trade happened, that they need some more guards, so that helps. And then I have a feeling they're going to trade Julius Randle again, just because I don't. He doesn't seem to fit. Like he kind of likes to have the ball in his hands, and you want Ant to have the ball, but we'll see. So yeah.
yeah. I think this is a move singling they trust Nas Reed. Like
Oh yeah.
they don't make that move. Nas Reed doesn't have the season he did have. And you saw
Hmm.
what he did against Jokic. I think they're in like the minutes that Cat was in foul trouble. I now looking at this, I don't think Minnesota loses a ton. Um, obviously, with Cat being the offense, like Cat's more offensively gifted and athletic than Nas Reed is,
Yeah.
but Nas Reed is like a very consistent 3-point shooter. You can get to
Hmm.
his spots. He's not a liability on defense, and that's what you want to
No.
see out of him. I think he's a better defender than Cat. Um,
Yeah.
so from that perspective, they're not losing much as a team. So I don't think the drop off for Minnesota is going to be as steep as people make it out to be.
Oh yeah, I can understand that. I think especially, I just think it might not be as steep, but they're gonna lose something. Like offense was kind of the thing they struggled with this year. Like their defense was great, but aside from Anthony Carl, Anthony Edwards, there we go, Carl Anthony Towns. You're putting Mike Conley out there, who's still good, but he's not like as much of a creator as he once was. Rudy Gobert, obviously, kind of not very much there offensively. I don't know who their like starting three was, but he really
Who
wasn't
was
doing
Jaden
it.
McDaniels?
Oh
It's
yeah,
got to be
Jamie
Jaden
McDaniels.
McDaniels. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about him. He's good defensively, but he is more just a spot up shooter. So now, hopefully, you hope Randall can create a little bit, but Dante DiVincenzo gives them that space. So I think Mike Conley kind of goes on the bench, goes to the second unit. So we'll see.
I don't know. I could still see DiVincenzo and Conley like depends on how they view their starting lineup. Um,
Yeah.
I think it might be more like DiVincenzo and McDaniels are interchangeable. Because if you go with DiVincenzo,
Hmm.
you could put Ant at three and make that work for like a
Yeah.
spacing perspective. So it depends. I think it might be a matchup dependent on like what they want to do with their wings and the guards in that play. And the fact
Hmm.
they got DiVincenzo to have that flexibility, I think would be good. But yeah, it remains to be seen. Like schematically from the offensive end, they gotta figure some stuff out because obviously it's different when you can't run Cat and Anthony Edwards pick and rolls anymore. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, where does that like where do we influence the defense to commit one way or the other? Because now that's a little bit harder. Like Mike Conley can still give you that one or two isolation possession shots, but you
Mm.
can't increase his workload just from a trade like
No.
this. Like it's time to like use Anthony Edwards on like scheme plays, but also get guys opportunity. Like you hope this DiVincenzo move gets them a lot more spacing, a lot more
Yeah.
creativeness. If you use him like a JJ Redick, I think it could be good for the team.
Yeah. But I think he also brings reasonable defense. He's at least a neutral defender, which is nice.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Next topic I have is which team is likely to win the NBA Finals. So this came from looking. We'll talk about some of the other questions later, but
Yeah.
there is there's like a survey that went out on like which team will win the 2025 NBA Finals, and my my pick is a team that's not in the top three, and that's probably surprising to most people.
Oh, I know who
That
it
look
is.
at this. But you got the Celtics, Thunder, and the Mavericks headlining the top three.
Mhm.
Who's your pick right now?
All right. So my
It's probably
my
home
own
field.
personal pick is the Dallas Mavericks. That would be amazing, and that's what I want to happen. But being completely objective, I think the Thunder, just because the Celtics, I feel like have a bit of I don't want to say championship hangover, but you don't have Porzingis for half the year. You're kind of having to tweak a little bit with having I think like Neemias Queta, Xavier Tillman, Luke Cornett, Al Horford's about to be like 39, I think. So you really have some questions at the center position, and what do you do with Porzingis when he comes back? Whenever he's come back, I mean, he came back for the finals, and then he got injured in a worse way in this really weird calf injury that is super rare. So you kind of get to a point where you're like, well, what is it here? And I think they're still a great team without him, but he's kind of the X factor there. So I think the Thunder can beat them possibly because now you're just defensive monsters: Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, obviously Shea, Jalen Williams, and then Chet Holmgren or Isaiah Hardenstein. So I give them some juice. I would like them to do a little bit, but personally, Dallas Mavericks is what I want. But I think the Thunder could win it. They're gonna have a great record too, possibly over 60 wins.
Personally, I'd want the Bulls to win the NBA Finals. Um,
Valid,
but I don't have the confidence that that's gonna happen.
yeah.
Who did you think I was gonna say when
The Bucks,
no. I
uh,
am, and that's strange coming from a guy like I've literally is my
yeah,
favorite player.
yeah.
But
That's
it's
what I was
actually the
thinking.
Denver Nuggets. I think the Denver Nuggets
Ooh.
can go back, win the NBA Finals, The one caveat is what do they do around the KCP loss? If
Mm-hmm.
they're able to figure that out, I think the sky's the limit for this team.
Yeah.
Like they were, people forget they were up on the Timberwolves by 20 in Game 7 and
Yeah.
blew it, completely blew it. Um, I think this team lost their focus a bit, lost their edge on that particular game, and
Mm-hmm.
suddenly they're not even the top three on this list.
Yeah.
I like what you said with the Thunder, but they're not stopping Jokic. Nobody on that team
I don't
has
know.
has the size and the defensive capital at the same time to deal with Jokic.
I don't know.
It's
I'm feeling a Hardenstein Holmgren matchup
stop, stop it.
like the Timberwolves did. I mean, you have your big body in Hardenstein. I mean, obviously he's no cat, nor is he like a defensive player of the year like Gobert, but it's like an imitation of it. So that's a
Gordon is dunking
possibility.
all over Chet Holmgren, dude. I'm sorry. And if you have Chet Holmgren on Jokic, I think that's barbecue chicken all the way. And I
We'll
love
see.
Chet Holmgren. Chet
Oh yeah.
Holmgren's blocks have been insane, but the Nuggets are just a different cat. Different cat.
Hmm.
You know how many chase down blocks LeBron has had and how he's continued to struggle with the Nuggets the past 2 seasons?
It's
It's
different. I
it's
feel like.
it's different. They just a different breed of a team. Like I'm telling you, whether it's Christian Brown or Peyton Watson, if they become starting wings,
Hmm.
I'd watch out, man. I'd watch out.
Yeah.
And they added Russell Westbrook on top of that. Michael Malone's a good coach. He makes the most out of like Reggie Jackson. I was not a fan of in Dallas. I hate and the Clippers. I hated him because he made so many like bad decisions as a
Yeah.
pure point guard. Um, and Michael Malone made him look like one of the 6 men of the year. Christian
Hmm.
Brown, great player development there. Hayden Watson, great player development there. What do you think is going to happen when Russell Westbrook has the ball in this offense, in this sped out offense? He's going to wreak
Yeah.
havoc. I don't think enough people are talking about the Nuggets this year. Um, and then you got like Dario Saric. He can do some things from the bench end. And then you got pure like draft capital and like Trey Alexander, Julian Strader. Like these guys are gonna do some things. Like
Yeah.
they're not just they're role players, get a lot of production. There's gonna be a new Christian Brown and a Peyton Watson on this team that comes up on the bench. Like they always find these guys out of nowhere. And
Hmm.
I I really believe in the Nuggets this year.
Oh, it's good reasoning. I do agree. If the young guys can really step up, if they can really have that chance, Julian Strother especially is another guy who can hit threes, kind of something that they need, especially with KCP leaving, one of their best 3-point shooters by percentage. So yeah, they can do
We've
it.
already seen it with Brown, what he's done in the playoffs. Like
Mm-hmm.
and Watson's on that trajectory. I don't see why they don't continue to grow. So
Yeah,
I'm really excited about them.
yeah,
Okay, so
brother.
there's some more questions on here from NBA.com GM survey. I can sort of share my screen and we can
Yeah,
walk through this.
sounds good.
We're just probably gonna pick out the questions that stand out to us the most as far as what we see here. Western Conference rankings. Personally, I don't care.
Eighty
First is
percent.
first. It does not matter. Like we've seen the Dallas Mavericks come out of this conference, like in the NBA Finals. So this order doesn't matter. Golden State ranked where they are doesn't bother me. They could make a finals run for all I know. Um, MVP. Do you like these players on the list? Who would you pick as your MVP?
I'd pick Luca, but I think a part of it is voter fatigue because it's been about 3 years at least that we've been saying it will win an MVP this year, and it hasn't been him for a lot of reasons. I think last year could have been a good chance, but it didn't happen. But I think now with kind of the best team he's had in his career, you have an actual center. You have two actual centers on the team to start the year. You have depth. You have Quentin Grimes is like our third, could be like end of the bench. Quentin Grimes, like, and he's a reasonable player. So This is a crazy deep team. Very excited to see what happens. And yeah, the Thunder got better, but I feel like sh- it's harder to compare Shea on the Thunder and Luca on the Mavericks because I feel like Luca really handles all the offense, while it's more by committee on the Thunder. But one thing I don't want to hear is any sort of defensive player voting for Shea because he's literally has to guard the fourth best player on any team now. So that'll low key piss me off because that makes no sense because he had some votes last year and validly so. We've talked about it, but yeah, I like Luca. Shea getting it would be kind of insane, but he could have an even better year this year. So we'll see.
One guy I'm a big fan of is Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid on this
Yeah.
list, he probably rounds out the top. He's probably likely to win because of the surrounding cast. He's got a lot better. He's going to have a lot
Hmm.
more opportunities to dominate. So I foresee like his average can go up even from last year, which is scary to think about.
Yeah.
And less defensive pressure on him, I think, will allow him to stand out.
Hmm.
A guy who doesn't crack the top five here, but I could easily see win it is Anthony Edwards because we just
That's
talked about them losing
insane.
Cat. Like
Yeah.
all the recipe is there for him to take over the offense like a Shea Gilgeous, like a Luca, with a
Hmm.
less talented team than both of those squads. Because I like the Timberwolves and what they have defensively, but if you look at the raw offensive talent on that team compared to what Dallas and like the Thunder have, it's not
Hmm.
comparable. Like Minnesota made it as far as they did because their defense is just insane. And if
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards takes on more of the offensive load, continues being the defensive pest he is, he might win MVP this year just because of how valuable. Like if he gets hurt, I don't think the Timberwolves are even sniffing the playoffs. That's
Oh,
the difference.
definitely.
So
I can see that. I don't know about Brunson was number 5 last year. He's not here at all now. But also MB got injured. That's part of it. But I think is he even on there? No, he's not. He didn't get any other votes. But I think he could be. I don't know. I mean, last year was kind of a bigger breakout year for him, showing exactly what he could do. So we'll see. I would like to see him there, but he has a lot more talent around him now as well.
um, I don't disagree with this next question here, Bambi. Like that's
Yeah,
like he gives you everything you ever need.
yeah.
So,
It's an obvious answer.
I'm curious about the breakout seasons. I think this is a fun topic to always think about. Um,
Hmm.
do you have like a breakout player on this list you would watch out for?
Um, I feel like Wemby could be even higher there. It just depends on like we were discussing before. What exactly do you mean breakout? Because I mean, Wemby was already number 2 in Defensive Player of the Year voting. He he was averaging in the second half of the year crazy numbers that we haven't seen before, and he could get even better now. Kate Cunningham, Loki, I like that pick just because now you don't have like 3 centers on your team. You have two, 3 shooters. I mean, you got Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris. So this could be a slightly more serious team. Obviously, still going to be pretty bad, but more serious. And yeah, maybe a sophomore jump from Brandon Miller could be interesting. And I think Mobley as well. Everyone with Kenny Atkinson coming back, supposedly a developmental coach that could really help him get better, especially with a shot.
Yeah, I don't see the Moldy one happening immediately. I think it's going to be a process here.
Oh,
But you took two of the guys I was thinking of, Cunningham and Miller. I think those
yeah.
are they're easy picks here, to have breakout seasons because I think their situations are getting better, especially with
Mhm.
LaMelo Ball coming back. I think Brandon Miller is going to see a lot more opportunities to shine.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm really excited about his prospects, for sure. Um, always a fan of Trey Murphy. Um,
Hmm.
it's possible he could become a 20-point per game scorer, if he gets the opportunities on the New Orleans Pelicans. Um, Keegan Murray, not as much so, given that you have DeMar DeRozan and you have De'Aaron Fox
Yeah.
there already. So
He's
that's
gonna
just going to be
lose.
a little bit harder to outshine them.
Yeah.
Um, Nemhard is real, but I have some questions about him on the defensive end. Um, he's he's caught some like miracle moments in the playoffs,
That
and I want to
shot.
see if he
Yeah.
can. if you can make it more consistent, I can see a real argument to it. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. I'm gonna ignore Cam Thomas being on there because
Well, one guy we can't ignore is Derek Lively. They played their first preseason game last night, and there's one play where Derek Lively just gets it open floor, does like a Giannis spin move, and Mavs Twitter is going insane. Now, I won't say I wasn't going insane, but they're like, "Yo, this is Giannis. Can Derek Lively be an All Star?" And I'm like, that would be amazing. I don't know if it'll happen, but if he if that's like something that consistently happens, those kind of moves in transition like that, that's kind of scary. But we'll see. I also watched Derek Lively Duke highlights this weekend, so this is the type of insanity we're working with here.
it's gonna be hard for him to be an all-star man. I'm just
Yeah.
putting it out there.
No,
I'm
I
gonna be
don't.
that
I
one
don't
guy
know
that
what
talks
Mavs
about all
Twitter is
these
saying.
all these teams in the Western Conference and the voting scheme. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be really hard, man.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm just making sure to get it here, so I can look back. If it does happen, I'll be like, "Yo, I said it back then."
I'll give you all the flowers. I'll give you all the flowers. So, that's point guard in the NBA. I get it. We've already had our rankings, um,
Hmm.
and I base it kind of like on overall players. But like, what are people doing here? Like, did Stephen Curry die? Like, what happened? Like, he was 63% last year, and just people forgot about him. Like, I love Luca. I love Shea, but I'm sorry. Like, from what Steph does on the shooting level to opening up the space, like that is point guard play. Like, if you look at it, because you were controlling how the defense makes decisions based on what you do without the ball. Without the
Hmm.
ball. That is just insane to me. Like, call me
Yeah.
when like Luca and Shea are doing that like off the ball because that's you can't replicate that. So for me, Steph is the easy answer here. Best
Okay.
point.
I can't agree with Luca just because the definition of point guard is like to have the ball in their hands and control the whole game, which he does. He manipulates everything. He always has the ball in his hands, brings it up court. But I understand that like the gravity that Steph brings just adds a different layer to it. That yeah, I agree. Luca really doesn't have because he always just has the ball in his hands. So when does he have a chance to not to have that to do that? So yeah,
I look at
maybe
it and
that's
being
something
like,
they can do.
okay, Luca can make good decisions, and he's shown like good situational awareness for like
Hmm.
passes and no look passes and like putting stuff in the right spot. But like it's different when you're like when you are the playmaker. Like
Yeah.
I'm saying Luca's not a playmaker, but with like Steph Curry, there's more like dynamicism to it.
Hmm.
And I think that's like a different level of playmaking he puts on than what Luca does. And this is not saying Luca is not an elite playmaker. This is just
Yeah.
saying Steph is otherworldly. I think people
Yeah.
people forget that.
I mean, he stresses the defense more than Luca does. I feel like at
Yeah.
times. Jeez, Trey Young just hit a crazy step back three. But anyway, no, I agree with that. That the stress he puts on a defense is out of this world. Uh, Especially when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. It's one of those things. The relocation three off a pass from Steph Curry, like any defender's just, oh, thank God Steph doesn't have the ball. To, oh no, he has the ball again. That's a shot.
Yeah.
That's just different. So no,
Hmm.
that's understandable.
Okay. I'm gonna skip on the other positions here. Um,
Quick note for anyone who looked as Josh was scrolling the list. Luka Doncic is top five in three positions. All right, we're good. Had to say it.
you just had to point that out. What about
I
Jokic
did.
over here with the two right next to each other? Are you just gonna forget about that?
No, I'm not. Yo, wait, was Luca there at center? Wait, what was the last one? Oh, highest percent of total votes on position questions. I was about to say, there's
That's
no way.
wild. Yeah,
I was
that's
like, there's
wild.
no way he's center.
Luca's
All right,
everything.
good.
He is LeBron.
Everything. Low key.
um, I do want to talk about. Um, we could talk about these two. The one
Yeah.
player acquisition that makes the biggest impact. I actually agree with this. I think
Hmm.
we talked about this before on two separate episodes when doing our top 25 players list. Paul
Yeah.
George is the biggest acquisition as far as impact
Hmm.
goes, like from free agency. the fact that Philadelphia was able to get him with like 2 All-Stars already and like one really elite player in Joel Embiid, that's not enough people are talking about it. They are right up there as far as like Eastern Conference title contenders, and it would be because of this move. I get it. Mikal Bridges is huge for the Knicks because they have another 20-point per game scorer from the wing spot. That's going to be super valuable. But Paul George, the things he can do consistently, he can do everything with the ball in his hands. He could star when there's missing injuries and whatnot. I don't see Mikal Bridges doing that if Brunson gets hurt. Like, I just don't foresee that happening. Can it? Yeah, but with Paul George, I think this is an easy answer here.
No, yeah, I would agree. I think a big thing is just one thing I noticed when I would watch Sixers games, or mostly when the Sixers would play the Mavs without Embiid, is just Maxi's great and he could score on his own, but he's nowhere as good on his own as he is with Embiid. And I'm not saying Paul George is Embiid, but playing off someone else, Maxi's so much better. So now you have Paul George, a guy who, when Embiid is out, because like I've kind of brought up a few times that I don't think he's going to play all the. He's not going to try to be pushing for an MVP. He's already got one. What he wants is to get to the playoffs healthy. Whenever he's out for rest or injured, hopefully not. Now they have Paul George who can kind of run the offense or may not have the ball in his hands, but be the prime scorer, and then Maxi can play off him and really get those shots. Like, yeah, I think I remember talking about it where it's just like Embiid posting up high post and then Maxi like right there in the corner near him or on the other wing, and he just gets a wide open three. Like it's easy. So Paul George
Not
can
only
open that up
that,
for him too.
like just to picture this, there's 2 scenarios where they can run half court offense right now with the 3 players they
Mm-hmm.
have. You can still keep the Embiid at the top of the key while like Maxi's running chase like behind him and around him and like getting wide open threes.
Yeah.
Now switch that out with Paul George, or stay in that same scenario. 1 second. Where you run it when you have Embiid and Maxi running their actions, and then you have Paul George just in the corner chilling. You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
leave Paul George shooting corner three. He's good at
Yeah.
that stuff. He's really good at that stuff. But if you switch it around where Paul George is now running the offense, and then you see like Maxey doing his best Steph Curry impression and just like running around the court because he's super fast. It's hard to contain him. It takes the
Mm-hmm.
wind out of you to contain him. You're occupied with that, but then you have like Joel Embiid just sitting like right there by the basket in the post that you can always dump it down to no matter what. And he has optimal um, like he has optimal positioning in matchups because he's not going to be doubled or triple teamed off the catch anymore. Like you have to
Yeah.
pay attention to Paul George and Maxey running like that's going to draw attention away from Embiid, and it's those kind of things that's going to make the biggest impact. Not to mention that Paul George instantly becomes the best defender on that team. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like you can put him on any matchup you want. Philadelphia hasn't really had a guy like that since Jimmy Butler. Um, and
I mean, Ben Simmons, I guess,
yeah, yeah.
defensively.
Defensively, when Ben Simmons was playing really well, like he was hard to manage. But I mean, but Paul, like I like him better because he's just the wingspan. Like with Ben, like he would time
Mm-hmm.
things really well, and he had the quickness. But with
Yeah.
like Paul George, he's a little bit more disciplined. He's just like he knows like tendencies and it's like
Mm-hmm.
when he breaks it down to the granular level, plus like what he has like athletically, that's a hard combination to deal with. Where with like Ben Simmons, it was just like insane quick. You don't like if you have a dynamic playmaker, you would put Ben Simmons on him. But Paul George,
Yeah.
you can put him on anybody, and like you can have some deterrence at least. That's rare to get a player like that. So,
No. Yeah. I agree.
um, okay, last one here. Who's your most underrated player acquisition list here?
Like, I don't want to say I don't get the Alex Caruso to Oklahoma City because I feel like how is that underrated? Like maybe it's underrated in the sense that they got another defender. Lou Dort kind of already filled that role, but it's like once that happened, I was like, geez, this is scary. I'm scared.
Yeah,
Like I if anything, I might have overrated it. I hope so. Definitely not Caruso. KCP, maybe gives Paolo more space, Franz more space to do their thing. Hartenstein, that I think is valid. Like I don't know. Tyus Jones to Phoenix, they need a point guard. I I feel like the underrated in here is confusing me, but whatever. I would say Tyus Jones to Phoenix. It's low key, and it is something we were all kind of clamoring for, that they need a point guard, someone to handle the rock. So this could really unlock the guys, Brad Beal, D Book, Kevin Durant, to just do what they do best and just make shots. So we'll see how that goes.
Yep, took the words right out of my mouth. I think it's Tyus Jones here.
Yeah.
Um, like we talked about this in New Orleans last year, like the playoffs. They need a point guard.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about this
Yeah.
with Phoenix. Two teams that desperately need one. Phoenix got the job done. They have a guy here that they can lean on. I actually like him. I think he started on the Grizzlies. I really liked his time from like Duke as well.
Oh
Like
right. Yeah.
this is like when Ja was hurt, like
Mm-hmm.
he was doing point guard duties, and like I don't think people are seeing it because it was such a limited time span. This guy is legit as a point guard, and I think he's gonna make a huge difference to like what Nurkic is trying to do. I'm just talking about the non-star players here on the team, plus the
Yeah.
star players, like setting them up. They just need a guy to set them up because you can't ask Booker to do that from half court or KD to do that from half court when their best
Yeah.
attributes are scoring from anywhere. So allow them to do that and allow Tyus Jones to kind of like organize it, and he can get his own shot too. Like think of this as like a Mike Conley like Minnesota situation here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I would probably say it's like a Mike Conley like hybrid between Minnesota and like Utah, and that's a really
Yeah.
good thing. That's a compliment to like what he's going to add to Phoenix. The other guy I'm going to say is Chris Paul here
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think enough people are paying attention to the young players in San Antonio outside of Wemby, but I
Yeah.
think they need a guy like him. Like he's gonna elevate the entire team. I
Mm.
feel like, and I'm not saying lock in San Antonio still playoffs this year,
No.
but they are gonna get a lot better for the rest of their career because they had Chris
Mm-hmm.
Paul on that team. Personified leader, gets the most out of his lineups. Like when you talked about early year Chris Paul, like when he was on the Clippers, like Pelicans, like he was elevating everybody on the team. Like
Yeah.
I think this goes back to him, like just being a steady force for your point guards on the depth chart behind him, like wings and like guards who haven't had an opportunity. I'd say it's Tyus Jones and Chris Paul from this list here.
Yeah. Tidbits on Chris Paul. I mean, any team he's gone to, when he got drafted, when he got traded to the Clippers, to the Rockets, to the Thunder, everywhere he goes, he makes the team. He increases the team's winning percentage that season. So that, I mean, in this case, it's gonna be pretty easy to do. But uh, like when he played on the Thunder, this man, we know him as a pick and roll mid range maestro. Who's the mid range guy in OKC right now? Shea. Like this guy is a dude who can do that and mentor people. So it's very interesting. And one tidbit for me, I want to say is, yo, at the bottom there, Gary Trent Jr., guy who I think he got signed on a minimum by the Bucks, a guy who just needs to shoot threes, play some defense for them, and give them like a prime defender with yeah, because it would be what Dame, Gary Trent, Chris Middleton, Brooke Lopez, Giannis. You have that one perimeter guy who, no matter who they're playing, he's guarding the best guy. He might not be the best defender, but all he has to worry about is defending, and I do like that. So it could help them out.
One more tidbit on Chris Paul. Like I
Mm-hmm.
completely forgot they had Stephon Castle. Like they got
Yeah,
him in the
exactly.
draft. Like he is 19. Think of like he is
God.
having like a master class from like what Chris
Yeah.
Paul's like 35, 36. Like think about having a master class like that and like figuring out how to get the ball to a guy like Wemby. You got Devon
Mm-hmm.
Vassell. You got Jeremy Shokin. Like these are guys that could use having a guy like Chris Paul, like helping them out, elevating their play. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I forgot about Keldon Johnson. Like he's had some moments
Mm-hmm.
where he's been good. Like he'll just elevate the consistency of the team, and not to mention like Wemby's about to feast. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's just one more tidbit I wanted to do. I do like the Gary Trent pick. Um, I hope Josh Giddey in Chicago has is an underrated part of acquisition. I
Yeah.
just don't know how to read the tea leaves in Chicago right now. It's
It's
weird.
just confusing. I mean, you have like five guards now, And bright side, Lonzo's coming back. Like he's in the jersey. They're saying he's gonna play. Like that's kind of exciting.
But
But like
what happens with Kobe White? Like, do you play them together? Like, it's really confusing to me. It's
I feel
weird.
like you make. I mean, you can't make it happen, but you try to get Lonzo to like show off his talent. Like Lonzo Levine, you try to have them like recoup their value by playing amazingly, whatever that means. I don't know what that means right now. And then you somehow, if you're lucky, trade them, get picks, get developing players, and ka-chow. You're full rebuild and chilling. That I think is like the most ideal scenario. Or else you're
The
like,
most ideal scenario was for Lonzo not to tear his knee up, and we
I
have
mean,
him, Levine and DeRozan and Vucevic kicking it. But now look at this team.
yeah,
It's Levine, Giddy. I like Buzelis a lot. Like I think
yeah,
his physical attributes stand out. Like we just got to get the mental game to grow.
mm-hmm.
Ball. Chris Duarte is fifth on this. What
It's
the Jalen
insane.
Smith? I like Jalen Smith, but like
Good backup center.
that's the thing. And then Vucevic, you know how I feel about Vucevic. Kobe
Yeah,
White, Patrick Williams, want to see it. Io DeSunmu, need to see it. Like, I agree he grew last season, but there's
yeah.
moments where he still irked me, aka like AKA Reggie Jackson. Like,
Mm.
and then like the rest is like, oh gosh. Like I like Torrey Craig. Like I like Javon Carter, but they're just that. And then
Yeah,
you have Jalen Terry, Why do we have Taylor Horton Tucker? Like why? And then
that
um
was insane. Seeing him at media day.
like
Wow.
I don't I don't know what's gonna happen with this team. I really don't. Like as like negative. Like if they surprise me and hit a top five seed in the East, I will be shocked. Genuinely shocked.
No, me too. That would be very surprising.
Alrighty guys. That rant finishes off this episode.
That's it.
Follow
We
us
can't
on our
do
Instagram
anymore.
page at amon.a.mission. Full length episode so you can hear the full 40-minute rant. At Amon Mission, our YouTube page. 3 words there. Give us a like, give us a follow, comment on like what do you think about these questions, how we answer them, what are your thoughts, and until then, see you later, Gators.
See ya.